All right, welcome to Closers or Losers. Today, closers are losers. What do we actually mean by that? We're going to discuss that here in a minute. If you're brand new to this call, I am Jeremy Miner. I'm the chairman of Seventh Level. I'm here with my co-host, Matt Ryder, our CEO. We are a company that helps sales professionals, probably like you listening to this right now, or coaches or executives or business owners, entrepreneurs. And we help you transform the way that you sell and communicate to your prospects by learning specific skilled questions, by learning sales skills that work with human behavior rather than against it. We're going to go over what that means. These are called neuro-emotional persuasion questioning, NEPQ. We teach you the right tonality that puts your prospects at ease, eliminates sales pressure, I can only imagine, and get your prospects to persuade themselves. What a novel idea. I love that. Matt, how are you, man?
Good, man. Good. And right. What does all that learning equal? Dollar bills, y'all.
It's dollar bills.
Making that paper. That's what it's all about.
It either represents a lot of money in your bank and investment accounts, or if you don't learn the right skills, unfortunately, it means negative dollars in that bank account.
Exactly.
All right, good to have you on, man.
Yes. It should be fun today. After all the questions and going through and seeing everyone, all the activity in the Facebook group, Sales Revolution, check it out if you're not a member. I wanted to go over one of the things that I think people struggle with the most, which is how to formulate their pitch effectively. And I think there's a couple of things that I think there's one, how formulating the pitch, but also like, what do you need to have in place in order to make sure that your pitch lands really well? And I don't say pitch. I mean like presentation, whatever the vernacular you want to call it.
I know. We have the hashtag on our shirts, ditch the pitch, right? Yeah. So we can't, there's no pitching around here. So so how do we present? So you're asking basically like, how do we set up the presentation so it actually hits home?
Exactly.
Well, that's a big try. I think we've been on like 17 hours training that. So basically, let me tell you what most salespeople do, and then let's go back around on what you should be doing. Okay. Most salespeople do this. They've been trained that when they first start talking to a prospect, the first 10% of the call is they need to build a relationship of trust. Hey, Matt, how you doing today? How's it going over there? Oh, I'm doing pretty good over here. Hey, do you fish over there? I saw a fishing picture over there. Do you like to fish? I love to fish. And they just BS about bullshit, okay? And most prospects pick up that very quickly, and they're just like, dude, get to the point, right? Especially if you're in their office or in their building, it doesn't matter. Like that stuff doesn't work, okay? And then what they do is they've been taught, you need to ask a couple of questions to find out the needs of your prospect. Okay, that makes sense. So they'll say, okay, so John, just tell me, I guess what's keeping you awake at night? And the prospect's like, awkward question. Or, John, can you tell me the top 2 problems that you're having? Okay. Most people are not going to open up to that. That's just an example of what we call surface level questions that get you nowhere, and your prospects are never going to open up to that. Now, your prospects will probably rattle off a couple of generic things that might concern them, all logical based answers. And then what do most salespeople do? Oh, well, you're going to be so excited because with our XYZ product, we can, and they go right into their pitch. I mean, we're talking they're into their pitch within 5-6 minutes. The problem is because you haven't established what their real problem is, even if they told you, because it's just surface level up in that point, you don't know, you haven't asked the right questions to uncover the root cause of the problem, like what's behind it, like what caused it. That's where emotion comes out. And you haven't really asked the right questions to see how it's affecting them. Like what type of impact it has on them.
I think one of the analogies that I use people is like, if you walk into an elevator, you can't just ask somebody their relationship they have with their mother. But if you get stuck in the elevator, you might get there, And so I think a lot of salespeople, they're taught to like, you go in, find a problem. The moment you find a problem, you dig deep on it. And you just go in, you just go, how is that affecting you? What impact is it having? Yada, yada. But it's like in reality, if you have a look at like the NEPQ framework, how it goes, like the connection stage, you're actually getting like an initial goal because you're getting like, what are you looking for? Then you go through your situation questions, you go through your problem awareness, you kind of start to expand that problem a little bit more. You go through solution awareness. And it's not really till you get like halfway through solution awareness that you actually get the real goal. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you go down through solution awareness, realize that the goal you were talking about wasn't the real goal. Then you got to go back up to the top and go, well, how close are you to getting that goal? And it's like, so I think like people don't just give you the answer because why should they? I mean, like telling somebody what you want, what you actually want is quite a vulnerable state to be in.
They don't give you the answer until they trust you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it all depends on the questions you're asking. Questions are not just there for you to find out their situation. It's to build in their mind that you're an expert. Okay. It's just like when you go to the doctor, right? You go into the doctor, the doctor doesn't say, well, what's wrong with you? Oh, my back hurts. I've got some pain here, doctor. And the doctor doesn't say, oh, you've got some pain. Okay, well, here, let me write out the prescription and go down to the drugstore and that should take care of the pain. No, nobody would accept that. The doctor asks them more questions to find out like, okay, how long ago did this start and what caused it and what is it doing to you? I mean, there's more questions there. Actually, if we taught doctors how to sell, they'd probably even sell more patients, but that's a whole nother story. But they help the prospect they're talking to, the patient, relive the pain in their mind. And then when they suggest a solution, they're like lock, stock, and barrel going to do it, right? Because they view that person as the expert from the questions they asked, okay? It's the same thing in sales. You can either be viewed as the expert or the trusted authority if you know the right NEPQ questions to ask and you learn the right tonality. Now, if you don't, if you're just kind of winging it and just making stuff up on the fly, or you've got a few generic questions you ask, then they don't view you as the expert. They don't view you as the authority. So they don't open up to you because why would they? What they do is they commoditize you. They put you over in the corner with all these other rude, manipulated, pushy salespeople. And then they price, if they ever buy from you, they're going to negotiate way down on price. And it's all about cost. That's what they're focused on is cost. With what we teach salespeople how to do, we get them to learn the right questions that get the prospects to think about results-based thinking rather than cost-based thinking. And that's a huge difference. So when you get to your presentation, by that time, they've just poured out what their problems are. They've poured out, maybe even found out from your questions 3 or 4 of their problems they didn't even know they had when you first started talking to them 12 minutes ago. Now they've got 4 more problems in their mind that you helped them discover. And now they're like, damn, this Matt guy, like, where did he come from? And so they're very open to the presentation at that point. And they're very present on how you can help them actually solve the problems they just told you and themselves they have.
Yeah.
That sets it up.
Yeah, beautifully. And also just prior to that, you've also gone through the consequences of not achieving the goal. And because you've got the real problem, it means you can get through to get the real solution, which means that you can get those emotional and tangible tie downs to achieving the solution, which is super important to then getting the consequence, which then is crucial to then having a presentation that ends in commitment. I think like a lot of people, like they'll go, oh, like, how can I structure my pitch to, get better? And how can I get better at objection handling? It's like, well, your objections don't hold any weight without a good pitch, because the pitch should become a framework that gets commitment. And and then like, you don't get the commitment without the consequence, because people don't like, there's a great analogy that I heard the other day, which is like, if you have a bear running towards a person and the bear wants to eat the person and the person's running away from the bear, who gives up first?
Yeah.
It's the bear. The person running away runs for longer than the person running towards, right? Because you can just be satiated. So like that consequence is so important, because that's what ignites the fire to start running away, you know? And then that doesn't mean anything without the real solution, which means nothing without the tie down, which you don't get without the problem. So like, you've really got to structure the whole thing correctly. Otherwise, like, you just don't leave yourself in a very leveraged position at the end to be able to consistently get a sale. And that's why people need the process.
You have no control is what you're saying. When you don't have a step-by-step structure from A to Z, from the opening part, the connecting questions, to the situation questions to find out their present situation and help them find out what it is, to your problem awareness, to your solution awareness. So they see what their problems are. Now they see in solution awareness where they can be once the problems are solved that they just said they had. And then you're taking them back in a loop where you're asking like, well, what if you don't do anything about this though? And you list the problem back for the next 3, 6, or 12 months. Like what happens then? And they're like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't go back to that. That sets them up perfectly with how you can actually help them. And then in the presentation, what most salespeople have been taught to do is like 50% of the sale, right? You got the flip charts, the slides, like here's our home office in Florida, and here's our building, and we're rated AAA by the Better Business Bureau, and here's our client, list of companies we've done. And it's like the first 10 slides are just like have nothing to do with the prospect's problems, and people zone out. They're just done.
They really do. They just fall asleep.
They just fall asleep, right?
Pitches are boring.
They're boring. I mean, just as well as I do, when we're talking to companies and we put together a proposal that we're going through, we don't say like, oh, here's our beautiful office in Sydney, Australia. And you know what? Here's the 2,100 testimonials we have. Like nobody gives a shit about that, right? Just to be frank, right?
Here's your problem. Here's how much it costs to solve.
We're focused on, do you remember how you said that your salespeople are doing X and Y and Z, and because of that, it's caused X and problems? So what we do in our training to solve that is and then we go over how we actually solve that problem. Then for the next problem, you remember how you were saying this with your salespeople, what we do to actually solve that with companies is we do this, this, and this. So they see problem, here's how we solve it. Problem you told us you had, here's how we solve it. So at the end, when you're talking about the investment, they need to solve the problems. When they see exactly how you are going to solve their problems, it's a very easy thing to be like, oh, wow, I only have to pay this to quadruple our company revenue. I'm in. Where do I send the funds? It's like a no-brainer. But if we just focused on our cool looking office and the nice looking dog in the background, and here's my beautiful wife, and we've got the best testimonials ever. And like nobody would care because it's all about you. It's not about them.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of pitches and they go really, really heavy into like the features and kind of all that kind of stuff, which is, I guess, like how people would sell like low end cars, like look at the leather seats and the automatic gearbox and the limited slip differential and all that kind of stuff. And I always tell people because when I was first learning NEPQ, I hadn't really gone through all of it yet, but I'd adapted most of my sales script except for my presentation. And the thing that I was selling at the time, they were changing the deliverables so often. Yeah. I just said, I can't be bothered keeping up. And so I literally just stopped keeping up and I sold it with no deliverables. And people were like, you can't do that. I was like, no, of course I can. Because all I was like, oh no, we're going to solve your problems. Yeah. They're like, how do you do it? I used to say, I don't know how we're going to do it exactly because this is a sales call essentially. And the coach is going to do that. But as soon as you pay, we're going to sign you up and you're going to do a 90-minute planning session. And that's where we're going to come up with your plan.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, okay. That was it. It was 24 grand, right? That was it. It's easy.
It's
because they were like, oh, I guess that's how you do it. Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet.
You help them build so much massive urgency in their mind that they felt like no matter what you said or what you paid, they were going to do it because they started to view you as the expert. That's what you did by your question. And we go back to so many salespeople are focused on I need to focus on my pitch and I need to know how to overcome objections, but you're thinking about it backwards.
Yeah.
What we teach you is how to prevent objections from even happening. Why the hell do you want 10 different objections when you don't have to? Our sales skills, if we're asking questions that are weird or manipulative or we just talk all the time, it triggers them to give us objections, right?
Yeah.
So we teach you certain questions to ask in the sales process that actually prevent the objection from even happening in their mind. And so when you get to the end, it's like a laydown. Think about the laydown sales you've ever had in your life, 5 or 10% of your sales. Why not have 50% of your sales be like that when you learn how to prevent the objection from happening in the first place? I'm more concerned about objection prevention than objection handling. Now, when you do get an objection, we're going to show you a 3-step process to help them overcome the objection, not you trying to overcome it, but help your prospect overcome it. It's a whole, what we teach, most salespeople have been taught how to ride their bike backwards. And now we're kind of teaching how to ride it forwards.
Yeah, I think like I stopped pretending that I could convince people to do things a while ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was because of the NEP. I used to think like I used to sell with like loads of logic traps and like just little skullduggery type, type things. Because I'm fairly witty, I'm fairly quick, and I can do things, and I can show incongruence very easily, which is more like theatrical debating.
Sure.
Right. So what I was doing was a more like, say, Ben Shapiro style theatrical debating. But what NEPQ is a much more like, say, a Jordan Peterson style persuasion. And if you ever watch the difference, there's a great YouTube channel called Charisma on Command, and it breaks down persuasion. It's a very good channel. But yeah, it sort of dawned on me the day. It was like that old school style of selling is much more theatrical, and it sometimes sounds good and impressive because you're kind of twisting people into little boxes, but like, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
It's like a political debate, right? They get up there and they wow the audience, like, and tie in the other person into this little box. But does the other person they're debating ever change their mind? No,
it's never happened once. So yeah, it's all like kabuki theater. It's just silly. And I think like it's funny. I stopped like, people need to persuade themselves. And so, I think that also helps like let go of like I think when salespeople let go of the need to make the sale, obviously like I want to sell everybody, like that's there.
Yeah.
But like if I have a process that I'm really confident in, that I know works, and I know I do the process and the guy doesn't buy, I'm like, hey, I did my process. I'm happy with that. I can let go of that. And because I'm not in a punch 'em up style, I don't feel like I was just outwitted or outbested,
Yeah. At that point, it's like, you know what, there's nothing I can do for this person. Like that's my mentality, when I was a full-time sales professional. It's like, if they don't purchase what I'm selling, then there's nothing I can do for them. They're just going to stay in status quo. But I took them through the same sales structure that converted, most people into buying what I was selling. And usually just came down that there was just zero way they could get funding for whatever I was selling. And that's okay for me, but not so okay for them, because now they stay in status quo and nothing ever changes.
Yeah. And I think like, especially the pitch and the way the NEPQ pitch is formulated, it does a lot of that heavy, or the presentation. When you go through the thing, but when you go through, because you get like double commitment. So when you go through your presentation, I like a pillar structure. I'm very like pillar one, you do this. And I usually like have a quick feature, quick benefit, but then the problem it solves for them.
Yeah.
So it goes, so we do this. The reason why we do this is because you know how you said, and then I'll loop it back up.
Yeah.
And then at the end I'll go, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Does that seem like it could be the answer for you? Yes. Do you mind telling me why? And then I'll sometimes go a step further and go, is there anything specific that you feel like would be like, I don't know, like the key to the castle for you this time? And I go, oh, like, why is that? So, because when someone has a good idea, I just want to solidify it with detail.
Yeah.
And then 100%. From there, that presentation has then given me a framework to where we've now agreed in principle that your problems are solved by our solution. Now it's about, okay, the rest of the call, whether it be just locking up the sale, which it usually is, or objection handling, I have a very strong framework to work from because we both agreed, well, this will work. So now it's about logistics or whatever.
It is. You got them to a point where they're like, okay, here's my problems that I didn't even really know I had until Matt asked me these questions. Now I realize I don't have just this one problem. I have like 4 other problems. And now I realize like how bad this really is. Now I realize the consequences if I don't do anything about this. And oh, by the way, now I see how Matt's solution solves these problems. Now I just have to get the money to solve the problem. So now you're getting them to think results-based thinking rather than most salespeople, their prospects think cost-based thinking because they don't know the right questions to ask. They don't know how to do it. They wing it.
This will blow people's heads off. How long do you think a sales call should go for?
Well, it depends on what you're selling. Depends on the price point, but even it depends on the industry, right? Like if I'm selling cybersecurity to banks, obviously it's not a one call close, right? They're investing $3 million. So I'm probably having 4 or 5 or 6 meetings with them. But if I'm selling, let's say a coaching program that's for 10 grand, that if it's a 2 call close, that first discovery call might be 20 minutes. inviting them to a webinar that goes over details. And we have the next appointment the next day that is maybe another 15 or 20 minutes to close them. And that's it.
Yeah.
40
It's
minutes,
true.
maybe.
Yeah, it's true. I remember I was, most of my calls before I met you were going for about 90.
I remember you telling me that. You're like, I'm working so many hours. And like, I'm just like, whoa, dude.
And you were like, oh, you should lock this up in 25 minutes. I was like, what? I was like, oh shit. And then sure enough.
It's completely different, because instead of going through your presentation and talking about all the bells and whistles, which they don't care about, you're only focused on the problems that they have and then the specific features and benefits of your product that solves those problems, nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
Because if you start talking about other things, and a lot of people, like, especially in IT or software sales or SaaS, just that kind of stuff, they'll start talking about all these features and benefits of everything. And the person was completely sold before that demo, but then they start to think, oh man, I don't know if my IT department is going to be able to learn this, or I don't know if we're going to be able to implement this in time. Maybe we should wait till next quarter. And so because they brought up all this extra stuff that doesn't solve any of their problems, it actually caused the prospect not to buy. So it's like you have to be so careful with that, for sure.
It's actually super common, because I think that people think that the old school thud factor. You used to buy something on TV and it would come to your house and they'd be like, the thud is when you put the box down. People think that people still want that. And it's like, especially how busy people are these days. Yeah. I don't see any benefit in having a lot of, like, you might have 10 deliverables or 15 deliverables, but I would only present like 3 or 4 of them. Mm-hmm. And then say, listen, there's other stuff available to you as well, but that's the stuff that's really going to get you. Because if you sell me into like a coaching program or into anything or a SaaS product or whatever, if I see that, like, I'm going to have to, if you give me all this stuff that I have access to, all of a sudden I now feel like I have to utilize all of it or I'm not getting value, which is why, like, when I used to have gyms, I never sold unlimited.
Yeah.
Because nobody can utilize unlimited. Yeah. So you always feel like you're not getting value for money. And so then you have to sit and think and go, oh, can I really utilize this program? Can I really utilize it? You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like trying to sell solar to someone into a 35 kilowatt system who's got a 2-bedroom house. It's like, it's too much, man. Like, it's too much.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's overselling it that triggers resistance and triggers objections when they might have been in the first place had you just shut up your mouth. Like, it's like if let's say, our sales training courses that people go through here in the next year are going to be close to 30 hours of training. But if we were like in a presentation, talking to a business owner, like, oh, you're going to love it. Your salespeople are going to have 32 hours of training content. That might trigger him to be like, when are they going to have time to go through it? I can't do it.
20 minutes.
Nobody cares about that. He just needs to care about the results that the salespeople are going to get. He doesn't need to see how long it is or whatever. But for some reason, people that sell things think if they just tell everything about it and how great it is to them, that somehow the prospect is going to think the exact same thing.
I'll tell you, if you guys are listening at home, how you know that you're doing this is if the prospect gives you, wow, you've given me a lot to think about. So if that's the objection that you get a lot, you're overcooking the pitch. It's too much. You need to dial it back a little bit, because like, hey, listen, man, this sounds good, but you've given me a lot to think about. It's like, well, that's overload. That's not great.
Yeah. You're literally just repeating back the problems they said. And now your individual product or service solves those specific problems and nothing more. And then we're asking commitment questions to close.
Exactly. What's the worst industry, do you think, for pitching?
Oh, man. Oh, there's so many. Oh, gosh, I could probably give you about 100. Well, I would say car salespeople are really bad with pitching. I think they're one of the worst. And it's not their fault. It's just the way they've been trained in that industry. Do you feel like it's more order taking these days than selling? I don't want to piss off the car industry, but like, I recently bought quite an expensive car, right? And the guy was like, he did nothing. He was like basically trying to downsell me. He was like, nah, this one. I was like, what are you talking about? I want the big one. Like, I want the V8. But he didn't. I don't think salespeople know what they're doing in that industry. Like we train. We train one of the largest car dealerships in all of Canada. They have like 28 dealerships. Okay. They are crushing it, setting industry records. They're going, because of COVID now, they've grown so much in the last year. We started training them a month before COVID. And in Canada, the dealerships were all closed. Imagine that. But we showed them how to like start making phone calls to people and getting them to come in. They couldn't even come into the building, but they would meet them with the car. They started setting records. They were up like 150%. And now they're buying all these other smaller dealerships that are going under because of COVID. Okay. So it's all about if your guy knew the right questions to ask you to find out what was behind your why or need of getting that big engine or that car, you would have been lock, stock, and barrel. Now you already kind of made the decision yourself, but let's say you were kind of on the fence, he would have got you over the fence, but he doesn't know how to do that. Most car salespeople I find don't. And it's not their fault. They just have really crappy training.
They never ask you questions about like, for example, especially if you see a family come in, like man, or like a pregnant woman, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like future-proof them, put them into the big one, put them into the 7-seater, put them into the Suburban or, you know what I mean? Or like all that kind of stuff. Leather cleans easier. So get them into the leather option. Like, you got the babies, like, what are you worried about? Like, what is some, you know what I mean? Like, what do you want out of a car long-term? Well, they never get asked questions. It shits me.
One other industry that's really bad about not asking questions are real estate agents. Real estate agents are horrible. I mean, they just go in, they're like, oh, I love the closets here. Aren't the closets so nice? And oh, Jeremy, you're going to love the ceiling fan. It comes from Italy. Like, that's my favorite part of the house. And oh my gosh, let me show you the kitchen. Like your wife is going to door the kitchen. And you're just like, you didn't even ask me what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, we're trying to buy a house at the moment. We went to some open homes. Now in Sydney, it's the worst because Sydney, there's like 52 buyers per house and they go for about 30% over ask usually. Oh, right. So if a house is 2 million, it will sell for 2.5. Right. So like, and they do that on purpose and everything goes to auction. It's bidding wars and it's all crazy, right? And it's not hard to sell a house. Like anyone can sell a house, but getting the listing is probably the difficult part, right? So, but this guy called me up and, I went to and I was like, I don't think it's for me. He goes, why not? That's exactly how he said it. I go, because there's no parking, man. He goes, oh, you can get parks here. I go, no, you can't. I've lived in this area for like 10 years. You can't get parks anywhere. He's like, oh, well, like, you don't really need to park for. I go, because I got kids. I was like, why do you think I'm looking at a 4-bedroom house? Because I have children. Like, that's why you moron.
Single dude. I mean, real estate agents, I love real estate agents, and we train a lot of them that crush it. I mean, that seriously own it. But it's because
we sell for Ryan Serhant, like,
I mean, their competition is so bad that it's like we just teach them 5 questions to ask, and they're going to triple anybody else. But I'd say car salespeople, I see real estate agents don't ask hardly any questions. It's all about them and what they like, and blah 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 blah. Those are 2 big industries that come off the top of my head. SaaS industry is a lot of talking about features and benefits. It gets overwhelming sometimes. So they make the sales cycle much longer. Pharmaceutical reps are really notorious about coming in. Oh, can I just see the doctor? Oh, doctor, can we go to lunch? We've got this new amazing drug. And they just start pitching, right? There's hardly any questions. So doctors are like, gatekeeper, do not let anybody in here. Medical device sales, very similar to that. A lot of those industries just have not ever, they just haven't been trained properly. They're still using like old school techniques from like the 1980s, man. It's crazy. Did I lose you?
It's a funny one. I guess when you start to like, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost you there for a second.
Yeah. I think like when you start to unveil and you start to understand not only sales, but more persuasion, I think, because like sales is one thing, but I think like persuasion is another. I think it can be a more interesting topic, and I think like, which is why NEPQ is called what it is. And I think it really is. It's a persuasion tactic. It's like, how do I get someone to persuade themselves and sort of really make like a lasting change? But the more you get into it, the more it annoys you when people don't do it.
It is. You start to see how salespeople sell you, and you're just like, whoa, like, did I sound like that? I think a lot of salespeople, they just don't realize how bad they sound until they start to learn what we teach them. And then they start seeing other salespeople and they're like, whoa, did I sound like that? Oh my gosh, no wonder I was at this income. Like, no wonder I was turning people off, and also
and there's a huge amount of, I think, like people don't believe, like the reason why I never post Marco's numbers online, nobody would believe them.
Yeah.
Nobody. Like he went 27 from 27.
Right.
A 100% close rate on programs
Yeah.
between $15,000 and $30,000.
Yeah.
It's like, no one's going to believe that. And like when I do post numbers, we had a guy challenge him the other day.
Yeah.
Challenge him. And I was like, okay, you can hop on some calls. I'll give you 10 calls. Let's see how you go. Same 10 calls. Like I'll go, you take 10 calls, Mark gets 10 calls. We'll see how you go. He said, okay. And then the last minute he goes, oh no, but it has to be on this account. I was like, no, because I'm not moving Marco around. Like, I don't give a shit what you think. I was just going to do it for fun and like vlog about it. I was like, I'm not moving stuff around for you. But anyway, it's really funny. People are so like resistant to change and be like, they think that 20% is a good close rate. They think that 20 grand a month is a really good living. And it is, it's a good living. It's
definitely above average for most salespeople.
It's comfortable, but there are guys out there selling door to door, making $100,000 a month. There are guys selling $5,000 coaching packages, making $100 grand a month. There are, because they make 100 sales a month. There are guys in SaaS that are making, there are guys out there in yacht sales that are doing $3 million a month in commission. Like there are guys out there crushing it. It's like, you got to be okay with that. And then if you can learn off them, learn off them.
I always say that salespeople who make low six figures have such high egos, right?
Yeah.
They make 100, 150, 200 grand a year. And they're like, I'm the best salesperson on planet Earth. I can't learn anything else. I know how to sell anything. And then it's like, dude, like that's really good. But if you learn more advanced skills that we would train you, like the neuro stuff, your income selling the same thing would probably at least double, possibly even triple or more what you're doing right now. You can hang out at 150, 180 grand a month. I mean, it doesn't hurt me. I already know all this stuff myself. It has no impact on me. I know all this stuff. But do you want to stay where you're at, or do you want to go up here? I don't care.
Yeah. And then you meet guys like we have conversations with Jerry Acuff, who, is doing deals where he gets paid $1 million for 6 hours of his time. So it's like there's another level again. So it's like, as long as you're always like, but we don't look at them going like, fuck that guy. We're like, no, that's awesome. How do we figure out how to do that? And then Jerry's probably looking at the next guy on top, like Sandler, and going like, how do we look at, how do we go after Sandler? And how do we do, you just got to like be open to it and accept it. And I think like there is that dangerous level of knowledge where you think you know everything. And then you start like, the more you know, the more you realize that there is more to know. You're like, oh no, I don't know anything.
I don't know anything. No, it's so true. Like I'm still learning every day. I read 3 books a month on sales and persuasion. We've got our own sales training company and our own courses, what we train. But I'm doing that because I'll read some books and I'll be like, wow, I learned absolutely zero in that book. It was one little golden nugget. We can rephrase that question and change it around to make it 10 times better. And we'll do that. But, I'm at least learning, because I know that if I'm not learning, if I'm driving around in my car just listening to the latest, greatest rap song or whatever on my radio, like how is that helping me train people better? How is that helping us make more money? How is it helping our clients make more money? It doesn't do anything, right? So you use your car as university on wheels, study, read books every month. You do that, and you're just going to sell more if you're learning the right skills. I would tell you there are some books that if you read them, you're probably going to sell less. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I've definitely gone down that path. And my favorite is sales trainers that didn't make it in sales and became sales coaches. Anyway, that's a whole different story. I
love the sales trainers that have become an international superstar, and you find out their background. They were like number 15th in the company.
Yeah.
Like, okay, wow, there you go.
Yeah. It's funny. The only piece of advice that I've ever taken from Dan Locke, which is one good line, which was take their advice, have their life. I was like, that's a pretty good motto. Like, and that's why when I heard your stuff, I was like, oh, that's really good. And then when I obviously went through NEPQ and did coaching with you, I was like, because I was the top guy at
you were.
I was doing well. I was doing like 25,000 a month, and it was all growing and going in the right direction. But it was just like, I was like, oh, I didn't know that was possible. I just didn't know. I was fully open to it, but I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Yeah. Like, so I was like, oh, sweet, let's do it.
You didn't know you could sell the exact same thing and make 50 grand a month or 80 grand a month, but just get your conversions that much higher because your questioning ability.
Yeah. When I left that company, they had I think one thing that I've realized is that if you are good, you can really skew a company toward because no one else could match what I was doing. They weren't even close. I doubled the whole other sales. Everyone else in the company combined, I doubled them. And so they just thought like those guys weren't good enough or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but I'm doing something totally different. They're like, can you train them? I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, why would I train your staff? Like, how does that benefit me? They just get more leads and I make less sales. It doesn't really seem to benefit me in any way.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I'm just going to do my thing. But yeah, so we'll wrap it up here now. But I think that was good. We sort of formulated the pitch and all that kind of good stuff. So make sure that if you guys do like this and you're watching this on Facebook, you make sure you give us a like or a heart. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube that you slap like, hit the subscribe button, tickle the little notification bell. And for the podcasters out there, make sure you subscribe. It lets us know that we're growing, lets us know that we're doing the right thing. And go to the Facebook group, Sales Revolution, and ask us any questions, because we do get a lot of the content for this podcast from stuff that people are putting on the it's all about joining the Facebook group, Sales Revolution. So we go live in the Sales Revolution Facebook group about 5 times a week. I'm going live 3 times myself. I know you go in once or twice. We've got some of our sales trainers that go live in that, and we are giving daily tips, contents, answering questions. We even do several trainings during the week, and we do all that for free, which is crazy. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of our if you think our free stuff's good, try giving us money.
And we give you like a little hors d'oeuvre of sales training that you can just take out and start making more sales. Can you imagine what would happen if you had all of the training? For sure. So just go to the Sales Revolution on Facebook group, join up. There's a little survey, a couple questions we ask you to see kind of what you're selling and what you're doing, and jump in there and get on our lives and take part of the Facebook group. And a lot of times we'll give out just different content trainings, sometimes at no cost you can have access to.
Yeah. You should be able to, like, one of our goals that we've always talked about is you should be able to get better at sales just by knowing who we are. Yeah. Right. And then hopefully we do a good enough job to where you just want to voluntarily give us some cash and learn the next level, so.
Well, they don't have to. They can stay at the same financial level. They don't have to double their sales or income.
Doesn't affect me.
It doesn't affect me. Yep. We already know all this stuff.
We're fine. It's all good. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. And we'll see you next week.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple 6-figure, high 6-figure, even 7-figure earners. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training. So be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're gonna win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the Sales Revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about.